How's it going?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me once again for Trad Queen Story Hour. Tonight, I am joined by the pimp on a blimp himself. This is Alex Stein, 99, Primetime 99, as you guys know him. Alex, how are you doing? What have you been up to?
I'm great, but is that really what this is called? Trad Queen Storytime? Or is that just...
Yes,
Oh,
that's
wow,
what my
I
husband
like
decided
that.
to name it. Yeah, so we're rolling with
wow.
it. We like the Trad Queen Story Hour take. We are taking it back.
No, that's a good one. I mean, that's creative. I like
Yes.
that. Trad Queen Story Hour. Well, we were just talking about that a little bit before the show. You asked me which event I was at recently that I got yelled at. And during Trans Acceptance Week, back-to-back weekends, to lead it off and to end it, I got hot coffee, I got assaulted, I got threatened for my life, all kinds of bad stuff. So when you ask me which one was I getting yelled at, I don't know. It's
All of them.
hard to pin them down.
That's such an exciting life, Alex. That's terrible. I'm sorry that happens to you. Do you feel kind of, though, like you put yourself in the position to allow people to vent their spleen on you a little bit?
Well, I hope so. And it's funny you say that. I actually kind of hope that I can be like a anxiety relief, even though I kind of cause anxiety because I'm so crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I hope I can be kind of a punching bag, and that's why I kind of try to make fun of myself and say my wife's boyfriend and Ontarius, and I talk about him all the time. It's because I mean, I try to I don't know. I guess I want to make people less anxious because everybody's so wound up.
That's true. That's true. I think that's a really good policy because the world is an incredible black pill right now. I really feel like you're bringing this kind of silver lining white pill perspective. Do you feel like that's what you're doing, or are you, at the end of the day, are you kind of still down in the doldrums? You feel like this is an upper?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. You can't have the dark without the light, as they say in the Illuminati or whatever. I mean, seriously, I actually say that jokingly, but that is kind of true. It's like we have to mock the system that mocks us, and I think that's all I'm doing, and that's why I use, I mock myself. I think that's the only tool that we have because the system is rigged against us, and like the people that are in power do not like to be made fun of. So if a lot of people started mocking the system, I believe that things would change. So I'm happy that people are enjoying me doing it.
That's great. I really feel like people are kind of putting themselves in your position and they're like, haha, that's totally what I would do if I were in his shoes, even though it's probably not. So they're kind of living
There's a lot of
vicariously.
Monday morning quarterbacks. Lynn, there's a lot of money. I would have done. I would have beat their ass. I don't care if it's a woman. I would have done it. Hey, I don't like that. I always see that a lot too. And, that's another thing. Speaking of TradCon and like there's stuff in the conservative movement, like I do believe there should be like some sort of socialized medicine where insulin is $200 in Texas, but $2 in Mexico. Like, there should be some sort of, if anything should be regulated, why not our healthcare system? The government already regulates so much, but I am basically, conservative, but then, we talk about, there's like a lot of issues where I saw where Dana White slapped his wife, and I was like, man, this is disgusting. A lot of conservatives are like, equal lefts, equal rights. So where are we in society where men now are like so mad, even on the conservative side, it's like, now let's beat women's asses. And then Maj Touré, who I like and I had on my show, we kind of like talked about it differently and we kind of came to an agreement, but he was like, no, if a woman slaps me, I'm slapping her back. And I was just raised, not that I was even raised right. I mean, my parents are crazy, but just under no circumstance whatsoever do you ever hit a woman. Even if she hits you, if she cheats on you, it doesn't matter. There's no excuse for hitting a woman.
Right. Well, that actually is super traditional. That is very old fashioned. I feel like women have really wanted this kind of equal rights stuff. And then now people are just like, well, this is what you asked for. You get it good and hard. And I don't know if that's right because I feel like a lot of women have been lied to. I feel like they're just kind of following along down a primrose path that's going to make them unhappy. But men in general, and even some conservative women, are just like, ha, you're getting what you asked for. I'm like, well, okay, first of all, as a woman, I did not ask for any of this. In fact, I've been fighting this since I was literally 11 years old. I feel like that's kind of unfair to say. But yeah, I don't like that mentality on the right that's like, yeah, women just kind of deserve what they get. That doesn't seem like a good way to fix some of the problems we're having. What do you think?
Especially when we say that we like gender roles so much. And I like the idea that, like, a woman is supposed to be almost a housekeeper and shouldn't just, be a slave to some sort of boss. She should be kind of a good wife. Like, we like these gender roles, but as soon as you like those traditions, but I guess you don't like the tradition of protecting women. I mean, and that's weird because that's kind of a leftist thing now with all the people that want to biological men that want to compete in women's sports. Like, That's another thing where men is like beating women's ass, like these MMA fighters that are biological males that are like fighting biological females under the guise of being trans. I mean, that's not right. And I
Yeah.
think everybody would agree, but that's the path that we're headed on.
Well, how do you feel about the pregnant women flying fighter jets and going into combat and all these other roles? Do you think that's where we should be? I've constantly felt like probably not.
Duh. I mean, and listen, now I'm going to say something. This is going to make me, I'm telling on myself, but I found a weird thing on Instagram, but I think the guy's big on TikTok. Um, and it's a plumber, and it's like, they'll clean out storm drains or like a septic tank. There's something cool about. Do you ever watch those videos where like a clogged drain? I know it's very weird, and it's very satisfying where they unclog a drain and then all this stuff comes out. But what I'm saying is, this guy is doing stuff that a woman would never do, and I'm not saying that's bad, but you never see a female plumber, and that's just, you just don't. I mean, that's just, I'm sure they exist, but I mean that they're an exception to the rule that majority of men. That doesn't mean women can't be in the plumbing business, but I don't have a lot of. And there's women HVAC, and there's women that work those roles, but traditionally the carpenters and those trades are done by men, and that's for a reason. Truck driving, obviously, there's female truck drivers, but that's one of the highest non-educated jobs that men do, and there's just stuff men are better at than women. I mean, that's just not up for debate. And there's stuff that women are better at than men.
Right.
I mean, that's just the facts. I mean, I can't have a baby. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's actually really great if you actually stop and think about it, and you're like, okay, there's things that I can't do that, for example, my husband Andy can do really easily, but there's also stuff that he can't do that then I can do. And it's so beautiful to be in a functional relationship and be like, oh, so I have all these weaknesses, and then my spouse comes along and they're going to be able to do all the stuff that I can't do. That's like the name of the game. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing is just bitterness over it not working the way it's supposed to. How much would you blame like No-Fault Divorce for all this stuff, making people mad?
Oh my gosh! Don't even get me started, because I don't want to bash Crowder at all. But
Yeah.
but I mean I can say this. I just don't want to disparage him. I know there's other people that will, but I'm not going to, because I work at the Blaze where he worked. But when he was, this is all I'll say about that. When he was complaining about No-Fault Divorce, I mean, I think I'm all for it, honestly, because I mean, that sounds crazy, but if a person doesn't want to be in a marriage, I think they should be able to get out of it. I know people disagree with me, but I mean, if she's unhappy, and it seemed like they were unhappy, I mean, listen, there's another thing too. Traditional marriage in this day and age with digital media and social media, I think the rise of Facebook, when Facebook like first came out, all of a sudden all these husbands and wives were cheating with their ex-high school sweethearts that they hadn't connected with in 10, 15 years, with people that they hadn't seen. It was all these boomers, people all ages, of course, people that you knew in middle school or whatever. Did I freeze? Oh, sorry. No. My point is, it caused a lot of divorces and a lot of relationships to break up. So now there's just so many options. It's like, it's almost hard to keep a marriage together. I mean, the idea that like marriage is the same as it was, it's not like it was a few years ago. So the idea, though, that one person wants to get out of a marriage, I do personally think that should be enough. But I also don't really think that women should be able to just take away their kids from their husbands. Right. I mean, that's ridiculous, in the divorce roles, how the women get, heavily favored in that situation. Because I was raised by my dad. I chose to live with my dad. And so, it's a very messy situation. And the idea, though, if you're in a bad marriage and one person wants to stay in it, I don't know. I think if you want out, the no fault, I agree with that personally.
Interesting take. Well, I have been kind of reflecting on the whole court system thing a little bit, because I was thinking about how much the trans conversation is changing everything about how we're viewing some of these gender roles. What do you think the trans movement is going to do to the natural or to the current bias in the courts in favor of women? Do you think that divorced dads are just going to start identifying as women in order to get the kids? I haven't really thought this through. I don't know. So work with me.
No. That's not what we need to worry about at all. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of weird cases, but this is a real thing that's happening in divorces. Now, what's happening when you talk about the trans gender ideology movement, it's a lot of parents that get divorced, and oftentimes the wife wants to get back at the husband, so they start transitioning the child. You can look at Jeff Younger, who had two twins, right, where the wife transitioned one of the boys into a female behind his back, and then basically got it where a court order where he couldn't talk about it, then he continued to talk about it, and now he barely can see his kids. Then you can also look at Dwayne Wade, who's an NBA Hall of Fame basketball player from the Miami Heat. He's married to Gabrielle Union, who is actually Zion, who is Zaya now, stepmom. The biological mother was against the transitioning of Zion to Zaya. So you see this where in the divorce, parents don't agree. And because divorces are so messy, people are so vindictive, I've seen it firsthand. It's not surprising that a parent would take out that abuse on a child. You see it all the time where a mom goes crazy and stabs her kids in a bathtub, or vice versa, a husband, because the mom starts dating another guy. It happens almost every week. A mom throws her kids off the roof because she's mad at the ex-husband. So if a mom will throw a kid off a roof, Munchausen by proxy, by making them purposefully sick, by giving them hormones or medication that they don't need, that's just a walk in the park compared to some of these vindictive divorces.
You're entirely correct, and that's actually not something that I'd fully thought through. So the idea of transing yourself after you get divorced to try to get custody of the kids was just kind of an errant thought for me, because I was like, how is this going to change the conversation? But you're right. Excuse my cat butt. He loves to be famous. He always wants to contribute.
I have toxoplasmosis, so you have it too. You know, it's a parasite in the fecal matter. And my dog has it because I had this pit bull, and now she's just... she's only been around the cats for about a year, and she loves him. I mean, now she like wants to go in the litter box, so she's like heavily infected. Yes, and she constantly wants to lay next to him. She's so infected with toxoplasmosis. It's on her. I see her sniffing in the litter box, because let's say I'm gone for a few hours, she goes and pees where the cats have their litter boxes, not in it, but next to it, because she kind of knows that's the.
Well, she just wants to be part of the team, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
My puppy likes to get into the litter box. She likes to steal cat turds as a treat. That's her little...
Yeah, why do they do that? Why does Ginger do that?
I hate it so much. It's horrible.
What the heck is that?
It's not okay. Anyway, yeah, it's horrible. I definitely have toxoplasmosis. I'm trying to reduce my exposure right now, but it's definitely there. Do you know they think something like 60% of people out there might have toxoplasmosis?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes. More
that's why we
probably.
love cats so much. Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes you want to be like a cat. And I'm telling you, once I got the cats, my life did change when I got the toxoplasmosis, because now I just want more and more and more. As a matter of fact, I had a cat, Dusty, and she was a calico cat, and the Japanese Navy would always have a calico cat on their Navy ships as a sign of good luck. Yes. And so I had Dusty, who passed away. I have 5. I went to 4 when Dusty passed away, and then I just recently adopted another cat. Butterscotch calico cat, and my luck it's been steadily improving since we got calico.
Great.
So, yeah. Well, not really. In a way, not really though. I ran in my school board race. I only got the results came out last night. I only got 27 votes. 1% of the votes I got.
Wow. You need a higher quality calico cat, or more calico cats, I think would probably fix this problem.
I mean, this is the thing, is I didn't do a campaign. I filled out this form. As long as I spend under $900, I don't have to do any campaign finances. Okay. So I literally only spent $600, and my competitor who won spent $43,000. But then another guy that was in the race, he got 400 votes. So I'm just saying that, is heavily favored. She spent obviously a lot of money. But the press, just kept on calling me a clown and a troll and all this stuff. That didn't help. But I also didn't campaign. I didn't even make any videos or stuff.
That's true.
I just put my name on the ballot. But I still would have liked to have done better than 27. But it's okay. It's okay, because Primetime 99, my autism is so strong, I can just run every year. Because this is why they didn't do a candidate form. They did all these normal procedures that they follow. They didn't want to give it any publicity because I was running. So, it was kind of like just a really quiet campaign. So I'm just going to keep on messing with the school district and running until they shapen up, as I say.
Interesting. So are you seeing issues with your school district there that you want to see fixed, or is this just kind of a jabbing at them?
No, I mean, I really would like to fix it, but I mean, it's also a little bit of both. I mean, because I would go up there and just cause a ruckus, only because this gender ideology stuff, they're going to start having to have a third locker room basically for these people that identify as trans, because now, I mean, there's going to be boys that identify as gay that want to change in the locker room, or might not even be gay. And I just can see the way things are heading. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to try to help the situation. Am I going to be able to fix it? No, I think it's like a much bigger and deeper and kind of a sinister plot, this public education system. So do I think I can actually fix the district? No, but I could maybe slow down the massive failure.
Yeah, well, you can definitely draw some attention to it, right? And be like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
It's a
They
thought.
don't want it to be like Loudoun County or whatever. They've even said that. That's kind of why they don't want to bring a lot of attention to the district. Obviously, this district's a lot smaller than I think the biggest one in Virginia, I believe, is Loudoun County. But still, they just don't want to have this negative attention because it does when there's a sexual assault on campus, in the bathroom, yada, 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 which did happen in Virginia.
Right.
It did happen. And the school board tried to cover it up, and administrators, yada, yada, yada. So it does happen. It is possible. But there's another thing. It's like, I want to say this. So when we talk about this school bathroom, that's terrible sexual assault, but it's weird what we give our attention to because look at Jordan Neely, who was a guy that had been arrested like 60 times. I mean, was a vagrant, had a literal warrant out for his arrest at the time. I'm not saying the guy deserved to die, but I mean, he was acting, crazy. And I mean, nobody deserves to die for being crazy. Obviously, had some mental health issues, but the outrage that the public is showing for him. Yeah, I believe there's like a 24-year-old officer that just got murdered. I forget where that was.
Chicago, I think.
Yeah, Chicago.
Lady, yeah.
Off duty, female police officer. Nobody even talks about that. So it's just this selective outrage. And we give a lot of this trans stuff. This is the stuff I actually feel real talk or whatever. I can't believe it's going to be a year. At the beginning of June last year, that's where there was Drag Your Kids to Pride event. That was like one of the biggest things that kind of popped off the drag queen story time where they started to bring kids into the Pride events. So it was kind of like, it was drag queen story time at the library, and now it's like Bring Your Kids to Pride. And it was a drag queen event where the kids were tipping the drag queens, and they were being very sexual, and it's the big sign that said it's not going to lick itself.
Right.
And because that caused so much outrage, people on the left realize, oh man, now my bar can get in the news. Oh, now my restaurant can get in the news. So let's host a drag brunch. They don't care about the negative attention. Some people don't like the negative attention, but most people are like, any publicity is good publicity. So now it's radicalized more people in other places, especially like the most conservative places where there's a person that owns a bar. It's like, let's do a drag thing here, because they're cool with it. So I'm just saying, there's somebody in all these places that wants to do it for attention. And because they saw that we give it so much attention, because Matt Walsh, because everybody's tweeting about it. I'm not blaming Matt Walsh. I'm just saying because it is such a, what is a woman? It was such a big topic this year that we give it a lot of this attention, and so that they're kind of using that against us and creating a way to cause more public controversy by having these. And we give it to them. We give them the controversy that they want.
Yeah, I find myself personally getting really frustrated when we keep posting these videos of Sam Smith, because I'm like, that's what he wants, right? He gets half of his views from outraged right-wingers. I don't want to see him in my timeline. Please get away from me. But it's
Sam Smith, he's an artist. Yeah, no, I'm just saying he's an artist who's trying to make money. Right. Well, he doesn't care if they share his stuff. Exactly, he's literally an artist. That's kind of how I feel. Like a lot of people, they share my stuff. I mean, really, I don't really care because even if you hate on me, I mean, I kind of want my art or whatever, my weird stuff to be seen. I mean, it's this weird double-edged sword where I kind of like to cause outrage on both sides a little bit so people share the content. So they know what they're doing. My point is they're doing it on purpose. They are trying to trigger us. We get triggered. It's what they're doing on purpose.
It's true, unfortunately. So I saw a tweet the other day from the Kerry Lake War Room that said we need to stop focusing on culture wars and focus more on the economy and taxes and stuff. Do you agree with that? Do you think they're onto something with that? Do you think they worded it maybe a little wrong? They might agree with you.
We should stop with the culture war stuff. I mean, that's what the whole grift is about. That's what the whole grift is about, culture war. And we talk about it, and it is a real thing. But we have a uniparty. It's really not, it's the left wing and the right wing are on the same bird. So the idea that like, oh, man, we're going to get conservatives in office and, everything's going to be fixed. I don't think so. I don't think Kevin McCarthy's going to fix anything. I don't think Lindsey Graham is going to fix anything. We give all of our money to the military-industrial complex. So, yeah, I mean, the culture war, I think, is very important, sadly. I mean, it's stupid that that's what's important because that's kind of the only thing that we control as a population anymore, at least we feel like we control, is the culture. So, yeah, so that's why the war is important, but it's all lame. I mean, it does suck. It does suck. Instead of actually going after our problems, we're like yelling at transgenders for having drag queen story time. It really is counterproductive. So she's right in that sense to actually solving our problems, but it's not just going to be fixed by putting in conservative candidates. I mean, there's not, both sides are in on the take, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really what it feels like. Well, I was looking at what was going down with Fox after they fired Tucker, and I was like, well, Fox is just like the Republicans in that they're supposed to look like the opposition, and they're really not. They don't offer
it's
anything.
television entertainment, Lydia. I mean, literally, and that's what I don't understand why they wouldn't keep him. Obviously, part of the Dominion, they had to get rid of him because all they care about is their ratings. They're just it's half the people that and Fox, and I know people that work there. I was lucky enough to go on Tucker's show and stuff. A lot of them are producers that worked on a lot of liberal type stuff. I mean, a lot of them they're not. A lot of people, there's people that blaze that their political ideology is not super far right conservative. So come on, give me a break. They're a TV company trying to sell ads and trying to make money. So it just shows you when they have they got a golden goose and Tucker Carlson. Still, Tucker Carlson's just a small part of that, tin-headed monster. So they really feel like, oh, well, we can get rid of him and just find somebody else, put the next schlub up, as they would say, probably in their big board meetings. Yeah,
I completely agree. Do you think that's actually going to work for them? Or is this like the equivalent of Budweiser playing that stunt with their activist?
Well, traditional cable news will probably always exist, but it's dying on the vine. I mean, now the independent creators, they can't even catch up. They can't even, it makes me sick. My Blaze TV, watch my show Primetime with Alex Stein. There's so many VTubers. They're just sitting in a hot tub that get more viewers than me.
That's
and
not
it makes
fair,
me,
I know.
That's what makes me sick. And I got a producer that works for me and we work hard and this and that. It's just, so if I'm having trouble competing with girls in bikinis in hot tubs, imagine what they think. They think about my show. They think about your show. They think about Tim's show. They think about any independent media. They are threatened by us because, these advertisers, they know that the most valuable advertising space to buy anymore is basically sports, and especially the Super Bowl, which is the most expensive because there's not any water cooler content anymore because people watch it a la carte or on demand. So it's not the same when everybody's like, oh, we're going to watch the Seinfeld finale or the Friends finale, and everybody watched it because it was only on at 8:30 in your city at that time. So everybody watched it. And they don't have that anymore. And they know that. That's why these TV shows only get 2 or 3 seasons. That's why movie industry is not doing as well because the advertisers aren't figuring out ways to make money from their advertising investments.
Yeah. So what role do you think the pandemic played with that? Do you think that hastened the decline of cable and amped up the a la carte offering?
It saved it. It saved it a little bit. It saved it a little bit. But Trump saved them a little. That's why I'm like, why don't they want Trump in? It gave CNN better ratings. It gave Fox better ratings. It gave everybody better ratings. They just shoot themselves in the foot. Another example of why would you fire Tucker Carlson? That's another thing. I've worked as an extra and I've lived in Hollywood a little bit. I'm not know that much about Hollywood, but I just don't understand how you can have the #1 rated cable news show. You have guys like James Corden leaving CBS. Why wouldn't these late night guys say, hey, let's give Tucker a show? Even if it's not like a late night comedy show, it's like a late night political show.
Yeah.
It would literally have a built-in audience. I just don't understand. So
yeah, they're not thinking ahead. Well, you mentioned, what you just mentioned. Oh, do you really think that CNN doesn't want Trump? Because to me, it feels like they're holding on to him like a life raft.
Well, yeah.
It's like a love-hate relationship, definitely.
Yeah, but it's also kind of weird because then you see the media that I think they are. See, I did see them kind of siding with DeSantis. Then I see him siding with Trump. So it's kind of hard to tell. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they want Trump for the ratings, but I don't even know. I really can't get a gist of what they want. What do you think? Do you think the media is pro DeSantis or pro Trump right now?
I think they're very strongly pro Trump. In fact, when Biden gave his last little speech, he didn't make any jokes about Trump. He made jokes about DeSantis. He made jokes about Tucker. He made jokes about Elon Musk, but he did not touch Donald Trump.
Yeah, that is the vibes. That is the vibes lately. That is the vibes. But they're going to turn on him in a dime.
Of course.
Because DeSantis is 44. That's another thing. What I don't understand, I guess my point to the infighting is I don't know why DeSantis doesn't just kind of chillax a little bit and be governor and just keep on kicking ass and kind of let Trump is an elderly man. Let's be real. He's an older man. So is Joe Biden. These guys really probably should be retired with all due respect, but I would vote for Trump again because I kind of think what happened to him was bad in the last election. So I don't know. I don't know why he wants to kind of dethrone Trump. I feel like that's not the best strategy, but what do I know? Maybe he's just ready to be president and this is an opportunity to strike while the iron's hot. So I get that too. I can't fault on him, but I don't know. I would probably, if you were DeSantis, would you be gung-ho and trying to, you kind of see a wounded Trump and you're trying to go after him, or would you just wait till all that? Because Trump's not going to run in 2028 or what? I mean, that's an impossibility. So
yeah. Well, I think that DeSantis can't do anything about the timing. Okay. So I think that he maybe thought that Trump would win in 2020, like in a landslide or whatever, and then just have his second 4 years. And then he would just be coasting along as very successful or governor of Florida. And then he'd be able to swoop in 2024 and say, hey, I'm going to take this Trump stuff to the next level. Vote for me now. That didn't pan out. So now he's like, all right, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. Don't really want to go up against Trump. But at the same time, I only have 2 years left as governor of Florida. Not sure what else I can do at this point. So it feels like he's kind of stuck. I don't really, I kind of empathize with him. But I've got people telling me that Trump deserves the second term. And I'm like, no politician deserves ish from me. Nobody deserves anything.
Yeah, that's fair. And there's stuff that Trump did that makes me mad. I'm not, but I honestly don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be above board anyway coming up personally. So,
many
that's
such
all
cases.
I can say.
Yeah, I know we don't talk too much about that on YouTube for sure. But yeah, I know there are a lot of people who feel that way, which actually makes me really sad because everybody should feel confident in their institutions. How do you feel about how everybody's feeling about their institutions lately? What do you think people think about the medical field, about the military, and all these people we were supposed to trust?
No, but I mean, come on, Lyd. We didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, and literally nobody gives a crap. And this is what was bad. This is why I think 9/11 was a kind of a weird deal. But this is what makes me so mad. I know, I think you're younger than me, but you don't have to tell me your age, but I'm saying after 9/11, I don't know if you remember, America came together. We were like, even around the world, people were traveling here. They wanted to help the economy of New York. I remember I went on a vacation in New York, like the hotels were like out. This is like before the internet boom, it was kind of different to get a hotel. I remember going with my dad, we literally couldn't find a hotel room. It was so hard because so many tourists and so many people were traveling there. And, it brought us together. It was a terrible tragedy. It was the biggest tragedy ever, but it kind of this weird thing. It wasn't about politics. It was like this apolitical thing. Sadly, it radicalized us to go hate Muslim people unfairly, when Muslim people didn't deserve that. But at least we came together for a cause. And there's something kind of beautiful about the cohesiveness of society. Not that we should all be one. I think we should each be, and have individuality. But, we just came together as a country. People had American pride. And now everybody had an American flag literally in every single yard. There's like famous things where everybody had a freaking little mini flag, at least in a neighborhood. Yeah. And now that American flag has turned to a hate symbol. And after the pandemic, we couldn't have been more divided. We couldn't have been more polarized on opposite ends. So it's like, this is the degradation of society where we just tragedies are just breaking us and breaking us and breaking us and fracturing us and not bringing us together. So 9/11 is terrible, but at least it was kind of good in the country. Like we had a common thing to revive from, not COVID. It's totally different.
Right. And you're right. I actually expected us to come together more over COVID than we did. It felt like there were definitely people who were using it to separate us. With that certain event in September 2001, they used it to jimmy in the Patriot Act, which I think started to open a lot
warrantless search and seizures of your phone and emails.
Right, exactly. And I think that should have red-pilled a lot of people, but even me, well, I was only 10 when 9/11 happened, full disclosure. I was born in 91. So I was just looking at it and I was like, wow, everybody's coming together. I think that's great. This thing is terrible that happened to us. I didn't glom onto any of the conspiracy theories at the time. I don't know in retrospect. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what happened there. We might not ever know, but we do know that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, and we do know that the Patriot Act is genuinely awful, and we spent years and years and years in the Middle East for nothing. And watching the way we pulled out of Afghanistan was just the worst possible option. So I guess my question would be, how do we kind of come back from this? How do we regain some sense of unity with our fellow Americans?
No, all we have to do is elect Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and then we'll start putting Brondo in our crops. No, how do we come together? I don't. Everybody thinks we're gonna have some civil war. I don't think that. I don't think that necessarily is gonna happen. Personally,
yeah, I don't.
No, yeah, but are we gonna come together? No, I don't think California. I mean, maybe Texas is getting really blue actually because everybody from California is moving here. But no, I don't know. You really basically there's no middle class anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So people can't afford to buy a house. Just people come up in debt from college that they can't get out of. So, until we kind of fix the system, until we fix like all the torture that we're doing to kids, I don't know if we're going to come together. I mean, the standardized test scores are at the lowest they've ever been, I believe. It was like sixth graders are reading at the first grade level. They had to go to school on Zoom for 2 years.
Yeah.
So do I think people are going to come together when all these kids are mad at society and they're going to have a scapegoat for all of their problems, the reason why they're hooked on fentanyl and smack and drugged out and having OnlyFans and they're basically a cam prostitute? No, I don't think we're going to come back together. I think it's just going to get more kind of just grimy or more like what you imagine as like RoboCop movies, I guess. But we will be, I think, that because this is another conspiracy. I tried to talk about this, and I had talked about this a little bit. There's outside influences like China, supposedly, and I don't know this to be true, but like foreign interests that have in Texas, there's a big like Texit movement, which sounds cool. I'm kind of vibe. Sounds like I would kind of like it. It's like Brexit or whatever. But if they did a Texit movement, it would be the end of the United States. It'd be the end of the Republic. It would just cause, a chain of reactions that would change the nation states that we currently have. And so there's outside countries that actually want that to happen. So it's kind of weird, like this sinister thing. You think like, oh, this is Texas first. No, it's like some other country just wants to make our country weaker. And that's kind of what's going on with globalism. And we're purposefully doing that. We're like the leader in globalism and the New World Order and, ESG scores and yada, yada, yada. We are the big main problem of all this, kind of dystopic nightmare that's on the horizon.
Well, we're a very large power. Speaking of a power, who's this powerhouse?
This is Sky Bear. He's the number one ranked cat. He's the oldest. He's the wisest, but he just can't stand. He can tell my energy level's higher because I'm talking to you, so he wants to come.
It's like I gotta hang. Yeah.
He's just a very needy cat. One of the most needy cats that of the fleet.
Yeah, Dip has his moments where he's a little needy. He jumps up here and he has to contribute, and then he'll leave usually. But what was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah. Okay.
Can you hear that? Can you hear that purring?
No, I can imagine it.
It's
I know the mic never picks it up.
I wonder if the
Kind of
mic
annoying.
could.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it never picks Dips up either. He's always trying to pitch in. I was gonna say, do you think that people are gonna naturally sort out? Like, do you think everybody's gonna move down to Florida or move down to, southern, more conservative states and away from the Northeast and away from California? And how do you see that panning out? Do you see any positive side to that?
We're gonna be in 15-minute cities, Lyd. Where you live? I mean, no, I don't know. I really do believe that they want us all in, metropolitan areas, and that's why it's like does sound nice to go to the country and have a homestead, but it's not easy for everybody. They have their family here, they have their job here, so
right.
I think we're gonna continue to get more coagulated, and metropolitans are only gonna get bigger and really overcrowded. Is unfortunately, and when that happens, it's like here in Dallas. Because Toyota moved here, because AT&T, they're bringing a lot of tech jobs and liberal people from California. So it's kind of, Texas is turning purple. It is. It's conservative in the small places, but Dallas is liberal. Austin is as liberal as it gets. Houston's liberal. Those are the three biggest cities. San Antonio is Hispanic, liberal. And San Antonio is taking the brunt of a lot of the illegal immigration. So the idea that Texas is some like, Texas first, conservative stuff. Abbott's not shutting down the border. We got a crisis: the drug trafficking, the sex trafficking, the fentanyl overdoses. So Texas is not going to be conservative. We're going to be like New York City in 10 years, probably.
Ugh, yuck. Well, unfortunately, that's pretty much exactly what happened in Colorado, which is where I'm from. Denver, super blue. Boulder, the bluest place, one of the bluest places in the country, and pretty much has been forever. They had an abortion clinic that would offer services up to like 9 months, which is absolutely insane to me. I remember being just sickened to learn that, but it is what it is. It's a for whatever reason, super left-leaning city, and it took the whole state from reddish to purple to blue, and now it's officially considered blue, even though a massive amount of the surrounding area, right, everywhere that's not a city in Colorado is extremely rural, agricultural, and conservative. And that's the case in most of these states. The cities are the problem. Is there a way to...
So that's why they're only getting bigger and more powerful.
Oh, I know. But how awful they are doesn't seem to deter people from trying to move in there and live there. Maybe just because it's easier to get to work. I don't know. It's
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for whatever reason, it's hard to go buy a piece of property. Nobody can afford it. I mean, you're in debt. You just want to live in an apartment. I mean, it's like Klaus Schwab. You will own nothing and you will love it. I mean, literally, they're outlawing gas stoves now. They're coming for our
I
stoves, Lydia. What
know.
the heck? What's next? They're going to come for everything. They're going to say, they're going to regulate our cell phone usage probably or something. You know, I really do truly believe that they want us to, and this is not going to happen in our lifetime because I don't think that we're like so worried about artificial intelligence. Let me go on my artificial intelligence thing. Telecommunication companies spend, I mean, now it's probably, I mean, billions of dollars on outsourcing their customer service phone centers to, you know, India, but they also work on technology that they try to trick us, robotic technology, artificial intelligence that calls us and sells us. But human beings always figure out it's a robot. And they have the most sophisticated systems. They use the most sophisticated testing where there's people that they know they're being tested or what, you know, yada, 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 whatever protocols they follow. Humans always figure it out because the robot, the artificial intelligence just doesn't have the same inflection, the how can I help you? You know, there's just something off. They can't create that. It's like the artificial intelligence with art. They can't ever get the hands. The hands are always like this. You know, it's always a little off. So of course, artificial intelligence is bad because now kids can do all their homework through Chat GPT and they don't actually have to do anything. So that, in a sense, is making us dumber, which they like. But the idea that artificial intelligence is going to become sentient and take us over, I'm not too worried about that. But I am worried about them creating some sort of neural link, and they will plug you into the metaverse like Vanilla Sky, where here you might have a debilitating illness or mental health illness. On the metaverse, you can be all your dreams. You can be rich. You can, instead of living for 75 years here on Earth, you live for 1,000 years in the metaverse. And, you know, they even say that they have technology where they're going to give criminals artificial intelligence where they can give them 1,000-year punishment in like 10 minutes.
Right.
Have you seen that?
Yes. That was a Black Mirror episode. I remember this lady.
That's what they want to do. Yes. So it's like, that's like the idea. And it sounds all good, but as soon as you plug into that machine, you die. Like, you know, they're going to trick you. They're going to say the new Apple Pod, you know, and in the Apple Pod, you're with Steve Jobs and Leonardo DiCaprio, whoever the star of the time is. And you can be that person. You can be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, transgender team, whatever it is, you know, whatever futuristic, you know, dream that you have of living. And people are going to line up around the block. People are going to be just like the iPhone. They're going to sign up, especially every gamer that wants to be Ready Player One. So it sounds crazy. Is it going to happen in our lifetime? I don't think so. I don't think so. But they'll figure it out. They're getting crazier and crazier. And yeah, like they're going to trick somebody into saying, do you want to live in a video game? And they're going to say, yeah, I want to do that.
Well, AI has already tricked one guy into taking his own life. I don't know if you saw that. One of the most depressing stories of the year. I think it was a guy in Europe who had 3 kids. And he had been talking to this AI person who had convinced him that they loved them, they loved him, and that the world, the earth, would be better off without him, and that he needed to take steps. Absolutely sinister and incredibly disturbing. He ended up, now his kids are fatherless, you know, and his wife was widow. Really, really upsetting. So yeah, it was a really awful story that I was sorry to see. And I feel like it's going to happen more often if we don't figure out what we're doing. I feel like,
well, in Canada, what about the assisted suicide now? You can just say, oh, I don't want to have, as like that Paralympic athlete that she wanted to build a chair that lifts her up the chairlift, and they're like, why don't you just do this assisted suicide? That's a little cheaper for us, cheaper for you, and it's better on your hip. You don't need this stupid chair. You're just gonna be dead. It's gonna be really fun.
I've been talking about this since I first heard about it, and I want to say October of last year. And I was like, guys, this is really bad. This is what happens when we don't value life anymore. And this is like the natural end point of being like, okay, so we don't really care about human life. We're happy to not include them at all. So we can just end them, especially with a government. So you were talking about like making the government pay for some of this healthcare stuff. I'm just looking at Canada and I'm like, they're literally telling people, sorry, we're paying for your healthcare. It would actually be less expensive for you to just, you know, shove off. And everyone's like, oh, I mean, okay, maybe it is. And that's terrifying to me. I don't think we should put ourselves in that position. What do you think about that prospect?
Of course not. I saw some TikTok where some girl said she got approved for whatever assisted, you know what, because she had, you know, body dysmorphia. So, Yes, and there are children there, I mean, like 18-year-olds, basically children. I think there's been very young people that have gotten it. So I don't know. It's kind of like the transgender surgery. There was an application for all of this stuff because there's a very rare instance where some people were born intersex with, both genitals. So
Right.
I remember learning about this in my sociology class when I took my gender roles. Now I look back, it's like total indoctrination. But they said this is before the gender boom. This is I graduated in 2010. So I mean, it was happening, but it just was not as like this culture war issue.
Yeah.
But they said in it that because these people were born intersex, oftentimes parents have to make tough decisions where they decide the child's sex at birth. Whether to get oftentimes they would like do some sort of surgery right then and there, and then start the baby on hormones. As early as possible. So that's like what all the medical recommendation is, as soon as possible. Now they've extrapolated that to having a gender clinic in every major hospital in every major city. So it started off as this really rare thing where, it was like basically kind of a tragedy almost for a parent to have to go through this, to where now it's elective and it's just willy-nilly and it's a profitable business. You saw a billboard Chris said, the Boston Children's Hospital, one of the administrators was caught in a speech just saying that we like these because these are lifelong patients.
That's right. Yep. And that's something that I saw coming a long way away. So you mentioned a year ago was Drag Your Kids to Pride, right? I was thinking back, when did Matt Walsh first start calling out Vanderbilt there in Nashville? Wasn't it like 8 months ago? They were saying, we don't do any surgeries on minors. It never happens. Now, today, we have legislators in Montana saying that if you don't push through the option to provide these surgeries to minors, you have blood on your hands. How did we go so quickly? Is it speeding up? Am I crazy?
No, what are you talking about? We're in acceleration mode, Lydia. I mean, it's like, no, it's not slowing down. That's why like all this culture war stuff is important, but I mean, are we going to win it? I mean, we're talking about, you want to get conspiratorial, like this is like a battle of good versus evil where
That's right. That's what Tucker was saying.
And so they want us all trans, they want us all this, so then we can't even procreate. I mean, then we kind of just self-regulate. And you think I'm kidding? Notice how, like, through the border, we'll take any Venezuelan, Guatemalan, people from all countries, but in their culture, they don't have high abortion rates. Yet we have, like, the highest abortion rates, so they encourage us all to, get an abortion. But and like, let's say this is another thing. American tourism's taking a hit because you still have a vaccine requirement for international travelers. Yet no illegal alien has any sort of requirement. They get to come through. They don't have to show their vaccine passport. So it's kind of like, what? This is weird. This is very unusual. This is, if this is as bad as it is, shouldn't they not be allowed in for public health risk?
Yeah. Well, that was that rule they're lifting on the 11th was Title 42, I think it's called, where there was a restriction. Technically, there was a restriction, not that that's halted illegal immigration in any way. There was this understanding there was a possibility of infection from COVID because of illegal migration. Well, obviously, they don't actually care about that. Obviously, they don't actually care about any of the risks that all of this migration poses to the American people. It's becoming pretty clear that they could care less about the actual people who live here. In fact, they kind of view it as an original sin to be an American and or to be white, which is crazy to me. I remember people on the alt-right talking about this, and they're like, well, this is how it's going to go. And I'm like, you guys are nuts. What are you talking about? And now we hear Democrats talk about how the white population is diminishing and that's an incredibly positive thing. And I'm just like, you guys want to prove the alt-right correct? Because I certainly don't. I don't like this conversation. I don't care if everybody can get a good tan as long as we all agree on like ideological principles. Really could care less. But at the end of the day, the Democrats are making the crazy far-right people sound sane. And I think that's just the horseshoe theory kind of connecting at the bottom. It's the people who were saying this is an awful thing, agreeing and shaking hands with the people who are saying this is a wonderful thing. The Great Replacement concept came from the left, from Chuck Schumer and people like him saying things like, the browning of America is positive. We need these people to come in and do these jobs we don't want to do. We need abortion for people who live in the U.S. and people who are, native citizens here. And my question to you then would be, where does it end? Is there an end point, or do we just keep doing this until we spin ourselves into the ground?
Well, all the menial labor jobs are probably going to exist forever, but a lot of these middle jobs are going to be replaced by AI. Now that is where AI is threatening, where they're just going to be able to
Right.
outsource their job to some sort of supercomputer. So yeah, no, that is where the threat is. But when you talk about like alt right, JFG, I debated him, and the debate topic was, is systemic racism real? And like at the beginning of the debate, he's going to say that I believe that I won the debate, because at the very end we debated. I believe that there was systemic racism towards black people, because they're charged with a similar crime as a white person. Oftentimes they get convicted, and a harsher punishment when they are convicted for the same crime. Even, and you look at our prison system. I think the black population is only 16%, but it's like one of the highest populations of the prison. And then he's like, no, that doesn't exist. And then I'm like, well, I think there was systemic racism towards Muslims after 9/11. People were unfairly,
Yeah.
brought in. He's like, no, I don't know about that. And then and this is all right, as soon as I said, well, there's systemic racism today towards white people. He's like, yes, there is. And I go, well, there is
Oh,
systemic
okay.
racism,
Well,
kind of.
look at
Yeah.
that.
And so it kind of works like that, where now I'm not trying to like say, oh, me, I'm a victim or anything, but it is kind of this weird thing where it's like, being a white cis male is not, it's like a bad thing. It's this
Right.
weird thing. And it's kind of like similar to the American flag. At one point, stood for America and freedom. Now the American flag is considered like a trigger warning and almost a hate symbol for some people.
Yeah, well, I look at the declining numbers of enlistment for every branch of the American military, and I'm like, what on earth do you expect when you tell the people who have traditionally been responsible for defending this country that they are evil and there's nothing they can do about it? In fact, if you want to get into the Navy, your best bet is to be part of the LGBT mafia, and you'll get all kinds of accolades and you'll be applauded by everybody. And I don't see that as a productive future either, because I'm from Colorado Springs. We loved our military. We had a couple military bases there in the Air Force Academy, and we were super conservative, and everybody there very down to earth, very common sense, no nonsense, no leftists, really, for the most part. And now I'm watching that slip away, and the military was the last place I ever thought I would see that. Really disturbing.
Well, I support every single man and woman in the uniform, but the uniform as a whole today, now they're, Rachel Levine is this transgender admiral. And I'm not anti-trans. I'm just saying that because of social justice, because it's not a meritocracy anymore, and then you
Mm.
just see the treatment of our veterans and they come back with PTSD and how little they care about them. I don't blame anybody for not joining the military. I
Right.
can't blame any person. I respect every single person's in the military. I respect your service. I don't want to sound flippant or disrespectful at all. I think stolen valor, is important. People lying. I respect the military, but I don't fault anybody for not wanting to join. I totally would vibe with that, really, because I've lost a lot of trust in our the leadership at the top of our military.
Yeah, well, you were saying that the American flag used to be this mark of pride, and people have been pointing out that the American flag is no longer the flag of this country. The flag that's being flown over embassies in other countries is the pride flag, the pride progress flag. I would never fight under that flag. And I had two brothers who served in the military. Two-thirds of my brothers have been in the military so far. The third one's too young, probably never going to be in the military at this rate. But I can't imagine that they would be proud of fighting under that flag either. And nobody in their right mind would be, especially not like the tough minded warriors that we really need. I can't imagine China is not laughing at us watching us do this to our own military. It's crazy.
Well, and I don't. And what's the last war we won? I mean, World War II. I mean, we lost Vietnam. I mean, all the Bosnia, whatever. I don't even know if we won any of that stuff. I mean, now it's kind of set up this war in the Ukraine that we're going to get in. I mean, the Middle East. That we were the ones that started the Taliban. We created the Mujahideen. And there's a movie called Charlie Wilson's War with Tom Hanks talking about how we got Congress funded basically the original Al Qaeda so that they could fight the Russians. They had beef with the Russians. And then they ended up, some of those weapons that we gave them used against us years later, these outdated technologies. So it's kind of similar to be like if we, in 10 years, all of a sudden, all the weapons we gave to the Ukraine, they started fighting us in the Ukraine with the weapons we gave them. So it doesn't make sense. It's insane.
This is actually already happening. They're seeing weapons from Ukraine turning up in the Middle East, like Russia captured them and sent them down there. I remember a headline from like 2014 or 2016 talking about how weapons that we gave to one of our allies in the Middle East was being used against other allies that we had in the Middle East. Like they were using our own weapons to fight us and our allies in the Middle East. It was like the FBI had given them these weapons and they were fighting the CIA weaponry. And I was just like, what are we doing? What is
Lydia,
happening?
we don't produce anything. We've outsourced everything. We've de-industrialized America. So the only thing we produce is Halliburton, Raytheon, bullets, planes that don't fly, $1 trillion plane programs. I mean, like literally, we love that we sell those guns, so we can replace our own guns. So yeah, I mean, we are like the ones that are creating all this. Like, America says we're anti-guns. All these politicians, the military-industrial complex isn't going to be anti-guns.
No.
The military is not going to be anti-guns. They're, let's give the guns to every single military person. For every person that wants to take away our guns, that's just going to leave the guns with the military, the police, and criminals. So it's not, guns aren't going away, honey bunny. I'm sorry. They are going to exist.
Right.
Just whose hands are who's gonna have access to them? Whose hands are those guns gonna be in?
Yeah, it's almost like a part of human nature. You can't make it go away. You can only figure out who's going to have access to it. And in a perfect world, in the world that our founding fathers set up, the civilian populace would have access to everything the military has. Everything. And when the Revolutionary War was being fought, this is something that Tim harps on a lot. He talks about how you were able to own or like to have control of a military ship, like a Navy ship. That's crazy. They had insane weaponry back then, and they thought, the founding fathers thought that the civilians should have that as well. And I really think they were onto something, because you can track it. Everywhere they take away guns, they put in authoritarian dictatorships, and the people suffer. Every time. It's as consistent as communism failing, is taking away guns and having authoritarians put into place. It's not something that you can argue with. So on the topic of guns, you mentioned AI, and I wanted to ask this question because Andy pitches to me the other day, my husband. He said, I think that if they control the internet, it doesn't even really matter if we have guns or not. I think access to the internet is more important than access to guns. I was like, that's a very interesting idea. What do you think about that, Alex?
I mean, yeah, if they turn off the internet for 45 minutes, if there was just a blackout, because I couldn't get my bank account, I wouldn't be able to log into my bank app. My card doesn't work, so I'd go to, you're telling me, and then the McDonald's, you think their whole system's going to work? That's all on a we I'm just saying, we wouldn't even be able to get a hamburger. I mean, people would be able to grill a hamburger, but the grocery store, the routes, the deliveries, everything that runs on the internet, they took that away for literally 1 hour, I believe. We had a system blackout. And then, we're allergic, people can hear on ham radios or something, there was an alert. The internet's out. We would get the alert somehow. Somebody would figure it out. People go, boom, boom, boom. Then we might have a civil war. Actually, I said we wouldn't have a civil war. Then maybe we would, because people would be looting and shooting, and who knows? People would almost have to kind of join in a group for protection. It'd be like the purge.
Yes. Well, that's actually something that my parents and my grandparents were concerned about. They were concerned about trucker strikes, because this was before the internet. They were like, all right, so what do we do if there's no food in the grocery store and chaos hits everything? It hits the fan, right? Our neighbors are going crazy. Everybody, in New Mexico where they were owns a gun. So what are we going to do? They had a place that they could go to up in the mountains in New Mexico, which was fantastic. But Andy was thinking that if they used the internet, so instead of shutting it off, because that's very, very blunt force, instead of taking it away altogether, if they used it to expressly disseminate ideas like, you don't need to own guns. Owning guns is anti-authority. Being anti-authority is a bad idea. Very much fifth generational information warfare. If they use the internet for that, we wouldn't even want to own guns. And I was like, that's terrifying, because I kind of feel like that's where we are right now. So what do you think about that? Do you think that could ultimately weaken our grasp on the Second Amendment?
Yes. Everything, I think, yes. They're just every school shooting, people don't want to own guns. Yeah. I think the internet is a driving force of all the mass formation hypnosis that we're going through, and without the television, with the television getting weaker and weaker, the internet's getting stronger and stronger, and they can literally brainwash us very easily. And I was kind of brainwashed. I'm sure you were kind of brainwashed. You can get out of that hypnosis if you want to, but if you don't want to, it's easy to just believe the TV and just have somebody smarter than you look it up, and all you got to worry about is paying your bills, just making ends meet. You're too busy to worry about why the world is the way it is.
Yeah, it's easy. And it's the way we've always done it. So is that you or me? I think that's you.
That's me. That's Sky Bear. He's mad.
No.
He wants to go outside.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Well, we'll be done in just a minute. Hang in there, buddy. Okay. So the world looks dark and terrifying, and I feel like we've been black pilling a little bit this
Yeah,
evening.
well, we have. Yeah, but let me actually say, I have to cut you off. It is positive because, listen, life is good. Life is very short. I talk about this a lot. I lost my mother through this. She was given remdesivir without my authority and yada, yada, yada. You know, it's something I'm going through. So I'm saying, and then something really good happened in my life. I got a Blaze show. Please watch it, Primetime with Alex Stein. And, you know, I've had, you know, a lot of success in a short time. So like good stuff can happen, and it's still not that great because your mom's not there. So my point is, life is hard. You should have gratitude even when things are the hardest. And that's why, like, I kept on pushing, you know, I kept on creating content. I kept on grinding. And I think that's like what was most important for me. That was my therapy, is like creating content and doing stuff. So I don't know. Life is great. It really is. We're lucky. We won the life lottery. I believe if we got here, we had like 8,000 grandparents at some point. So just the fact that all of those, you know, dominoes fell in a row for us to be here is a miracle. So savor the flavor. We should have some gratitude. Now things are going to be bad, but really you are in charge of your happiness. You are in charge of your diet or just whatever, you know, you're in charge of your job. If you want to have a bad job, if you don't want to work, like, you can choose to be happy. You can choose to be a drug addict. You can choose to be an alcoholic. So it's not the government. It's not some foreign leadership. It's not the Illuminati. It's not, you know, the battle in the Gaza Strip. It's not. I'm just saying you are in control of your happiness. Of course, the government and there's people that, you know, can kind of influence it. But at the end of the day, it's that, like Michael Jackson said, you got to look at the man in the mirror or woman in the mirror or trans in the mirror and decide to be happy and grateful for what you got.
Very, very true. And these are very stoic ideas because there are two classes of things in the world, things you do control and things you don't control. And this is the Serenity Prayer, is figuring out which one you can control. So you control your mindset, you control your diet, well, to some extent. I mean, there's bad stuff.
Yeah,
everywhere.
my diet's not great. I'm just saying, you know, that's
something you
but
can't
you
control.
are, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about like the water and thinking about all the stuff they put into our food, and it's discouraging.
But it's terrible.
It's awful.
Are you kidding? It's like the fluoride in the water and this and that and why. None of it makes any sense. And like, you know, I'm not even worried about 5G or anything like that, really. But I mean, maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, just saying, it's all maybe. I don't know why they're doing all this. Everything should, and that's like where it goes back to the healthcare system. People shouldn't have to take an Uber to an ambulance. I mean, instead of an ambulance because they're afraid of the price. Like, it's just, we should. The system that we have in place is not built for the American people. It's built for the American corporation, and that's the problem.
Yes, that's true. I think that's a good note to leave on. Yes, it's all built for the American corporation, but you still have control of how you view the world and how you handle it. And just as an ending point, almost all of my heroes have been through difficulties like addictions. Some of them went through concentration camps, and all of them came out better people for it. So it doesn't matter what's coming down the pike at us. We can use it to make ourselves and our kids and everything around us better in some small ways. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I had a great time talking to you, and we will have to do it again in the future. You said you have a show. Where can people find you? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, Primetime with Alex Stein. Everybody go watch it, like it, subscribe, hit it. I mean, I'm not trying to beg, but just go check it out. I'm going insane for the Ukraine. It's very different than a lot of the shows on YouTube. So just go look it. You might not be your cup of tea. I get it. It's not for everyone, but it's weird. It's odd. It's bizarre. And we go insane for the Ukraine every episode. So come and watch it.
It is very high energy. It looks like a lot of fun. I'm going to go subscribe right now. Primetime with Alex Stein on YouTube. Again, thank you so much. And to everybody else, we will see you next time. Bye, guys. how's it going?